Good evening, and we're back live. This is episode 11. Good evening, folks. Little bit different tonight. I've got a few things to tell you about that's kind of a little bit exciting. But I'll say this, see, just as I'm about to start, right? I'm feeling a bit nervous tonight. This is episode 11, and it doesn't mark anything different, but I feel a bit nervous tonight. I'm a bit sweaty palmed this evening. I had a coffee with Yvonne, maybe about 6 o'clock tonight. So maybe it's that. Maybe it's the glasses. I'm worried about the glasses. I'm getting nervous about the glasses. But welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for coming along. John Bennison, Marina, Alistair Powell, how you doing? Thanks for joining me. 4 o'clock in the UK, just gone 11 here in Malaysia. We've moved countries. Going to talk a little bit about that. And I've got some news to share with you, something that feels a little bit exciting to me. Let me think. I always try and have 3 big stories to share with you each week, right? Always try and have 3 big things. And tonight, number 1 is kind of always around the finance stuff, right? Because it's kind of the number 1, like, how do I survive? So I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about a couple of my investments, playing on the back of last week's show, episode 10. This is 11. That's how counting works, John. Well done. But I'm going to cover some investments. I'm going to give you an update on the insurance. It's progressing, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the insurance situation. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of a roundup on Bali. What happened in Bali, and now we've gone, we've left, what that's like. So welcome, Project Weaver. Welcome, Julie. Thanks for joining us. Everybody slowly working their way into the live stream. Right, let me say this. Last week, right, I said that I was kind of considering turning this into a podcast. Like, I've not given myself enough to do, like enough jobs, right? Filling my retirement with a new self-employed career. But I've given myself something new, and that's that I've turned this, you guys are watching it live, but I've turned this into a podcast, and I've published 10 episodes so far, so you can watch it on YouTube as normal, but it's now available on Spotify, and I'll be adding it to the other platforms like Apple and Amazon as quickly as I can, but it's now on Spotify, and I've given it a bit of a different title. It's called Second Wind, just because that's what I kind of feel like in my 48 years on the planet, that having gone out of a job and everything else, this feels now like what I've started here, and thank you to all of you for joining me. Feels like a bit of a second wind. So how does this work? Well, just really simply, I do the live stream on a Wednesday, talk to all of you. Then normally the next day it's available on replay on YouTube, but now it will be available on Spotify. And I have 0 followers so far, and I think I've had 1 listen to 1 stream, and that was me today. I listened to it myself. I listened to myself like a nut job in the gym today, because I wanted to hear what this all sounds like. I've pulled the audio, so it's just audio, just me talking. I've pulled the audio out of this live stream, and then I've uploaded that to Spotify, given it the show name, and that's where I'm at with all of this. So there will be a link in the description of this live stream and tomorrow when I post it. And then if you like Spotify and you want to listen to some of these, I'll build the archive and I'll share that every Thursday. So that's where I'm at now. I've created a podcast. I wasn't expecting to do that last year. And I was kind of thinking a little bit about that. If you hear creaking, by the way, it's not my body. It's the wooden chairs that I'm sitting on. So hopefully it dulls it down a little bit. It's not my back after a Bali massage now makes a creaking sound. So I'm kind of excited about that. I don't know if that's what's making me a little bit nervous, because I'm now thinking, oh, it's like I've now got, I've got the YouTube channel, got Patreon, I've got a newsletter, and I've now got a podcast. talk about a little bit of like a kind of content creator, right? Feeling like this is a whole new world. But I'll tell you what I was thinking about that. I've started that yesterday, today, from zero. Same as I did with this channel last year, from zero. Oh, and Instagram. I forgot about Instagram. I've got an Instagram page as well. And yes, to people who'll listen to this later who don't see the comments, somebody's just asked me if I've got an OF account coming next. It's funny, somebody actually mentioned that in the comments recently, but not in a friendly way. So they're all growing nicely. And I just want to say, take a second to say thanks. But I'll tell you what I want to also say. See if there's anybody watching this, right, that's kind of sitting on the fence about a project or a hobby or anything, right? I cannot say enough to you to just start it. Don't worry about success or failure or people judging you or what family and friends are going to say, any of that. If there's something that you really want to do, please just go and do it. I could get emails from people who have started YouTube channels or are writing music or doing whatever, and they're getting up and running with these things and finding a little lease out of life, right? And there's things can be so heavy, like politics and money and everything else can be so heavy, but just find something that you want to put some time into and give it a go. Like, just have at it. What's the worst that can happen? You fill a few hours of your time with something that you enjoy doing and try it out. So that's my opening message in this week's episode, which is now a podcast. Right. Before I dive into the money situation, let me just very quickly say thank you to everybody that's joined me on Patreon, growing a little bit bigger. This week we're at 120 members now. The chat's actively moving along, and I am regularly posting 3 different series inside the channel, building in public, and also about my stock options, and that's what I'm going to dive into a little bit more in a second. In the last couple of days, I've made a YouTube video that talks about my earnings. In the last month, I made around $2,000 in stock options, writing contracts for myself, and I've got a few others closing in 2 days' time that I'll talk about. But going back to last week, right, I talked a little bit about GameStop, Ryan Cohen, the CEO, and their attempts to buy eBay. And I got a little bit of an update on that. And that's the rumor that was speculated that GameStop was going to try and buy eBay became somewhat of a reality. And that GameStop has kind of made an official approach to try and buy eBay itself. Now, the reason why this is interesting is because GameStop is valued at about 12 billion and eBay was valued at somewhere around 48 to 50 billion. So a small business trying to take over a bigger business is rare, but not impossible. And in the last couple of days, the eBay management team has rejected the offer from GameStop. And now we're in a position where it's going to be interesting to see if this becomes some kind of a hostile takeover. I own GameStop shares, and I'm just finding the whole thing fascinating, right? I'm loving the meme side of this news story that's playing out. Just before I joined this live stream, I was watching the CEO of GameStop, Ryan Cohen, being interviewed by a guy called Anthony Papolino, I think his name is. He's like a Bitcoin guy, a kind of crypto guy that's got a lot of notoriety around investments. He was interviewing Ryan Cohen. They were chatting about it. It's quite fascinating. Of course, the eBay management team have rejected the offer. I mean, they're on, I think the CEO is on somewhere around 30 million per year as an annual package, including compensation and general salary. And they're all going to be gone, right? So they've rejected the offer. But what was kind of funny out of all of this, to me anyway, was that it turns out that Ryan Cohen has an eBay account and started selling GameStop stuff on the platform over the last few days. tail end of last week after I'd done the first live show last Wednesday. He put things like a pair of dirty socks. Thank you. John Benison's just jumped in. Anthony Pompliano. It's worth going and having a listen. It's exclusive on X. It's about 30 minutes long. Don't do it now. Listen to me for a wee bit longer, then go and check that out. But Ryan Cohen was trying to sell his dirty socks on eBay, right? And a GameStop sign and some other bits and bobs, and people were bidding them up. At one stage, his socks were up to something like $17,000. But as part of the listing, he also had letters to the management team attached to the listings. Now, nobody really knows how much stock GameStop have in eBay yet. It's speculative around 5%, but it could be more. It's not yet public information. And listen, just Scottish guy on the internet, right? Everything I say, like I'm just telling you as I've kind of listened to it. I might get a few bits of this wrong, right? I'm just sharing it like you and I are sitting in the coffee shop and we're just shooting the breeze about this. So eBay banned Ryan Cohen's account on eBay. He's one of the top shareholders. He owns more stock than the CEO owns in eBay, despite getting a 30 million a year salary. It's laughable. And they banned his account. Then they unbanned it, and then they banned it again. All sorts of stuff going on. And Ryan Cohen was just saying in the interview, he's probably used eBay more than the management team has used their own platform recently. So this is just all playing out just now. It's quite fascinating. So now the question is, again, eBay stock before the approach by GameStop was selling at around $70, $80. That's what it was trading at. And now the stock has run up to about $105, $110. And then with all this going on, GameStop's dropped down, and there's a meme where Ryan Cohen was asked, how are you going to pay for this? And he said, half cash, half stock. It's became a meme. As he said, there was a meme going round about, this has been applied to everything, but somebody had ordered a hooker, said, I'll pay for it, half cash, half stock in GameStop, right? It's became a meme. Everything's a meme. But Ryan Cohen has just done this interview, and he was asked, like, what's next? And he says, we'll see. And Anthony, who was the host of the show, said, I think you're going to win. I think you're going to win this. It's fascinating because, again, nobody really knows how much stock GameStop have of eBay, and it could be more than just Ryan Cohen. Now, let me give you another little bit of this is all speculative, right? But Ryan Cohen has another company name that's been registered in Delaware called Teddy. Teddy. Now, where does Teddy come in? Ryan Cohen wrote a book some time ago, stories about a teddy or a young child and their dad, and this was kind of a throwback. And people speculated that this was some kind of sign as to where GameStop wanted to go. And there's a bit of a question there as to whether Teddy is actually going to be the new parent company. Now, before the eBay attempted acquisition, Ryan Cohen tried to buy Bed Bath & Beyond. And in doing all of that, it kind of fell through. And in the end, Bed Bath & Beyond went bust through the management resisting the offer of Ryan buying the business. And they were going to merge with GameStop and have this kind of, he's basically looking to bring together a series of retailers. And another one that's been speculated over is Sears, Sears, which went bust as well. Almost like a kind of amalgamation of each of these classic brands in America. And Ryan Cohen has talked openly about wanting to rival Amazon in some respects. And he is an e-commerce specialist. That's where he built Chewy, the pet store. And then he's obviously now got GameStop, but GameStop is like a traditional retailer with bricks and mortar, 1,600 stores. but he loves the e-commerce thing, and that's what he talked about on the interview with Anthony. But there's this Teddy branding in there, and people have speculated. Now, Teddy is, I mean, again, I'm as much into the detail as this if I can, but I'm just still a dude, like reading all this on X and following along and Reddit and everything else. Could be absolute BS, right? But Teddy might have been registered as a bank or trying to register as a bank or some kind of financial institution. Now, a big supporter of all of this is Michael Burry, the big short guy, right? So Michael Burry owned GameStop and has apparently sold it now, but he described Ryan Cohen as potentially the new Berkshire Hathaway. So fascinating, really, really fascinating. So who knows where all of this goes, right? I'm just watching it from a distance, seeing what's going on and playing it out. So I've got a question from Alex. What percentage profit are you making on average on your stock shares, John, just out of interest? I try, when it comes to cash secured puts and when it comes to covered calls, I try and make about 2 to 3% a month. And that shifts up and down. I'm thinking about making a video maybe in the next week, just talking about what made up that $2,000 that I earned last month in April. Now, I've covered GameStop there, right? So I'm watching GameStop and I am paying attention to that as a stock. Now, I've talked about this openly. The one stock that I own the most of is SoFi. SoFi, the bank, the US bank. And SoFi has been taking a real major hit, right? It ran up to about $30 odd, and since then, it's trading today at about $15.80. Struggling. The market was struggling a little bit. Looks like it's bouncing back, but SoFi's having a tough time. However, much like I like Ryan Cohen as a CEO, and I think he's trying to do the right thing. You know, he's got his own skin in the game. Over at SoFi, you've got Anthony Noto, who is the CEO. Anthony Noto is on a $1 million a year salary, but with packages and everything else also comes out at around 30 million. But as an annual salary, $1 million. On Friday or Monday, can't remember which day, he bought another $250,000 worth of stock, which brings his total to $2 million of stock that he's bought just this year. Now, again, let's compare that, right, to eBay. eBay's entire management team have never bought a single stock of the company that they work for. They've taken out, been given stock awards, and they've sold their positions, actively sold for over the last 5 years. All of the eBay management team have sold. So that tells you the kind of confidence level they've got in the business. And then when I look over at GameStop, most of the management team have actively bought, which tells you they believe that they're going to make money out of it. I mean, of course, look, there is always room for an argument to say they're under pressure, so they've bought it to try and give the impression. That could always be argued. However, I think the numbers kind of stack up there. And the same could be said for SoFi. CEO and the CFO and much of the management team have been actively buying. Now, the CEO, Anthony Noto, said in an interview on YouTube, he believes the stock is worth somewhere between $30 and $40, more like $40. So he's buying right now at like $15.80, $16, $17. He's been buying recently this year, $2 million worth of purchases. So I own SoFi. I write some covered calls and also cash secure puts to bring in a bit of income on money that I have sitting on, particularly SoFi is one that I regularly watch, and that generates some of that income. So I'm watching GameStop, I'm watching SoFi. And the last that I'll talk about in this little bit of the finance roundup, story one of the three that I try and cover each week, would be around a company called Spire, which is a kind of satellite rocket business. And I own 1,500 shares of Spire. And I currently have 2 tranches of covered calls that expire this Friday. Now, just to explain, right, in kind of basic terms what that means, I've agreed to sell 1,000 of those shares on Friday if the price is above $15. And I've agreed to sell another 500 shares if the price is above $18 on Friday for a covered call. And for doing that, I've picked up somewhere around, roughly top of my head, about $800 in fees. Now, I bought the stock for about $7.50. Today, as of today, right now, it's trading at, let me look at my phone quickly. It's trading at $17.56. So I have 1,000 shares at $15 and 500 shares at $18, and it's at $17.56. So on Friday, if it's still in this $17 range, I will sell 1,000 shares, take the profit out from where I bought it, and walk away with the fee. Now it's trading slightly higher than that, so I'm losing out on a little bit of extra profit. But honestly, not worried about that. Walking away with a very decent return on my investment. Now, if it goes above 18, I'll close all of the shares that I own on Friday, and I'll walk away with profit from the $15, profit from the $18, and 2 fees. If it closes somewhere in between, I will just get the fee from the $18, and I'll probably turn around and write another contract for something more like $20 for 30 days' time and take another fee and be happy to let that stock go at that point. That's kind of how I work this. Now, the next time that Spire takes a little bit of a pull back, I will write a cash secured put. In fact, I have a cash secured put open right now for $13. So if it falls below $13 over the next couple of months, I'll buy some of that stock back at $13. However, if it remains above $13, I'll just get the fee, and I think the fee was somewhere around $1,300. Does that make some sense? Hopefully, to people listening to that, kind of gives you some idea. Those close on Friday, and to the Patreon members that are part of the community, I'll update you as to what's happened with all of that. But I'm telling you here on this. So that when this happens on Friday, this could be a pretty decent return from my original investment in that stock. Now, as another one that somebody's just put up just now, Rocket Lab. I have one cash secure put for Rocket Lab open right now for 100 shares at $65. Now, to give you an idea, Rocket Lab today is at $123. So unless it tumbles all the way to below $65, I'm keeping the fee. To give you an idea what that fee is, it's about $900. But I think it's open until October. Now, I can close it today. I had a look before I started this show. I could close the position, buy it back today, and I could cash out about $500 of the 865 or something, I think is the exact number. But I could close it out and walk away with the majority of it. However, I'm looking at this position right now and I'm like, it's at 125. They've just had an amazing earnings. The price is holding. Unless something incredibly drastic happens here, what is the likelihood of this dropping from 125 to below 65? And even if it did, honestly, I would be okay at owning 100 Rocket Lab shares. It's probably a break even of like, I don't know, $60 or $62 or something like that, with the potential that it's just been at 125. So unless something insane happens, I'm okay with that position. That's one that I'll ride out a little bit longer. Right, that's kind of my numbers roundup. So you can let me know in the comments here, would you be interested in me covering just what I earned, just a numbers video for the month of April? You can let me know and I can maybe make that. It shouldn't be too hard to pull that together. Right, so I had a question from Alex where it's asking, do you use stop losses or just sit on shares? Simple answer, I just sit on shares. I only own 4 or 5 companies that I'm interested in, and I've held them for a very long time. SoFi, I've held since 2020. GameStop, I've held since 2020. I own Spire. I own a company called Webull, which is a trading platform. And I hold, I think, 2 others, and that's about it. And most of these are long-term holds. The Spire one I've held for maybe 6 months, less time. I've been in and out of that position, but my buy price on it was about $7.80, and like I said, it's close to $18. It's been as high as like 22 in the last few weeks. So I'll be okay with closing that out, taking the profit, and just sitting waiting to see what comes along next. So that's a little bit of the roundup on that situation. Now, I wanted to also just take a quick second, right, and say I occasionally get a tip or a donation from viewers on here, and I always try and give a shout out. And I also sell, well, I make documents and I give the documents away for free. Sometimes I get a donation from it. It's on a Ko-Fi page. Somebody recently purchased some of those documents and made a bit of a donation, and I'm immensely grateful. And I just wanted to say, I'm running a series inside Patreon where I've talked about what I make on YouTube, and I've talked openly about those earnings. And what I've not talked about publicly is what I put back into the show. Now, this is just chat, right? This is like, I invest back into it. Obviously, I've bought a camera when I started this. I bought a laptop, but I have pretty regular ongoing costs. The platform that I'm streaming to you right now, where I can bring these messages up, like Mr. Upgradable, do you use one broker? I can do that on screen, and it gives me a nice microphone sound, all of that. I pay like $25 a month for this service. I use Zoom to host weekly or monthly one-to-one calls, and I do that on, or rather on Patreon. I pay about $20 for it. I use some AI. I make thumbnails on Canva. So I do accrue costs. So when somebody sends me a donation, immensely grateful. I don't go looking for that, but when somebody picks up a document and decides, yep, I'm going to send something, that money just goes back into the platform. So I just wanted to say to the person that did that recently, thank you so much. You've covered some of my costs for the next couple of months, and I greatly appreciate it. So thank you for all of that. I'd make these videos where I talk about the outgoings. Did one a couple of days ago. I don't build into it the cost that I spend on like platform things, because that's just really for me in this, it's like a business now, right? I didn't intend for this to be the case. I started this just out of the life of the job and everything else that was going, right? And now where it's at, podcast, Instagram, right? And that's me. That's what I'm saying at the start of this. If you've got a hobby and you want to go do something, do it. Go and make it happen and see where it takes you. And I certainly didn't expect to be sitting, what are we at, like 15 months later and live streaming. Never thought I'd be doing that. Didn't think I would be doing Instagram posts and creating reels and doing thumbnails and all that kind of stuff. Wasn't in my view at that point, but here we are. But thank you. So I just wanted to say that. Right, so let me go back and answer that question. Do you use one broker? I use 3. I actually use 3 right now. I'll explain why. I use Interactive Broker, where I trade my options and I hold stock on there. That's the platform where most of my portfolio sits. But I also have an account with eToro. That's where I started. And I had no idea about options, didn't know about any of that world. Took courses with a guy called Uncle Bruce. Bought multiple videos from him for, I don't know, close to $1,000 I think I spent to learn all of this. I think he charges, I don't know, I don't want to speak on his behalf, but I don't know, $150, $200 a video, and I've purchased multiple. He has a catalogue of about 20, and I bought them and I learned, and I'm immensely grateful because I've now earned money from all of that to kind of sustain a life in some shape or form. So when I started all of that, I used eToro. I bought stock on eToro, but I had no idea what the platform was like. And what I've kind of come to recognize is that on eToro, you're kind of committed to that platform. You can't move your stock out and you can't move stock into it. So I own SoFi on there. And I'm starting now this new financial year, waiting for the right time to sell some of that and then move the funds over to Interactive Broker because I prefer it there. And because I can write options, I can't do that on, well, they've added it now, but as far as I understand on eToro, you never really own the share. It's a price guarantee of the share. It's like Interactive Broker, right? I can move the stock away to another platform or I can bring stock in. That gives me some confidence that I do own the stock, the asset, right? I own a share. Whereas on eToro, you can't do that. And that creates some question marks for me. And I also have some stock on Revolut. Revolut has its own stock portfolio section, and I own a little bit of stock on it as well. And I've had some on there, and again, I've transferred it to Interactive Broker. And then at one point, I bought a little bit more of a company on there, and I haven't done anything with it. So it just sits on there. And I own some crypto also on Revolut. I haven't done anything with it. It just sits in the account. So I've used those three, but I have used many others. I've used AJ Bell as an example. I have an account with Robinhood, but I'm loath to buy anything from Robinhood because of the history that has with GameStop, because Robinhood was one of the brokerages who famously removed the buy button when GameStop was on a major run because they ran out. Well, the speculation was that they didn't have enough money to support it and that the brokerages were going to collapse. So when he did that, Vlad, the CEO and owner of the company, I kind of made a mental decision that I wouldn't buy anything on Robinhood, and I've stuck to that to this day. Now, let me go back slightly. SoFi have bought a British company called Prime or something, which was a £500 million rated business in the UK that SoFi has stepped in and has purchased. So SoFi's making some acquisitions, and they've also done some kind of purchase in Canada, which looks like SoFi as a US bank is starting to potentially branch out. I would love that. SoFi's quite like Revolut in the UK. Revolut is now, gone through the whole banking charter. That's what SoFi did a few years ago. So I would become a SoFi customer if I had the opportunity to do it. I would, if I could open an account and be a customer of theirs, I would absolutely do that. Oh, God, I keep forgetting. I've got a trading 212 account as well where I have an ISA, and I opened that before I left the UK, and I own stocks in the ISA stocks and shares section. Not doing anything with that. I'm not trading it. It's just a long-term hold of a couple of businesses. So I've got a comment here from Welby that says, I was the same regarding Robinhood. They are a great interface. Your comment is spot on. In terms of the gamification, if I put Interactive Broker and Robinhood side by side, most people will understand what they're doing with Robinhood significantly quicker than they will with Interactive Broker. I can't get away from the point that you've made there, Welby. That's you're spot on with that comment. Right, so that's a little bit about what's happening with my finances. So, right, we left Bali yesterday, travelled back to Malaysia on a tourist visa. We now have approval to be here for 90 days. I would say a little bit of our British privilege. There's no getting away from it. The British passport has a nice value attached to it that you can come through the passport system as an e-gate in Malaysia. So you don't have to go and speak to an agent at a desk or get a stamp or anything. You need to apply up to 3 days before you arrive an MDAC Malaysian style visa. You do it online, takes a couple of minutes. You get an email, and then that's you. You just arrive. And we flew out of Bali and arrived back into Malaysia yesterday about 5 o'clock and sailed straight through the digital e-gates. I think this is our, first time, second time, third time, fourth. That's our fourth time coming into the country now. Not 4 times staying a full 90 days because we've left and came back, but 4 times visiting. And we're now in an apartment for a couple of days before we move again. So we've got something coming up. I'll share more on the channel on that in the coming days. But went to the airport, got dropped off. Here's a quick thing. I don't know if you saw the short that I posted, right? But Edinburgh Airport has just increased the drop-off fees for dropping off a relative or family member or partner or whatever at the airport from £6 to £8.50. £8.50 to drop somebody off at the airport. And somebody mentioned in the comments that London's a tenner. And I was thinking about going to the airport in Bali, right? And also here in Malaysia, it's free of charge. And somebody mentioned in the comments about Dublin Airport also being free. And I was thinking, I mean, try not to bash on the UK and be like, oh, cost of living is absolutely shocking. But £8.50 Edinburgh Airport to pause your car for 90 seconds and throw a relative out and chuck a bag out the back. £8.50. Outrageous. So we got a taxi from Sanur over to the airport, and then we hung around for a little while and then got the flight back to Kuala Lumpur. And when we got into the airport, it was Tuesday at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was empty. It was absolutely empty. We went through security, picked our bag up, and we were in the car in less than an hour. I was like to Yvonne, this is efficient. And we kind of joked, right? Because see, each time we're leaving somewhere, the two of us, we do a wee song. I don't know how many of you like dance music, but the band Faithless, you remember God is a DJ and I can't get no sleep, that, right? Famous Faithless. They had a song called Not Going Home. It was remixed by Eric Prydz. Absolute banger. If you know all of this, by the way, we could have a beer in the pub and talk about all of this, right? If you don't know what any of this is, it's going over your head. Don't worry about it. But the song is Not Going Home, right? And Yvonne and I sing that in the airport because we're not going back to the UK. So we're always like, not going home. Then I can get, right, we do that. And we laugh about it because it's weird not flying back to the UK at what felt like the end of a holiday, because Bali this time round for the month felt like a holiday. I tried so desperately hard not to feel like that, but it was very hard. Today, Wednesday, the 13th of May, I sat down and I've gone through all of the numbers for what we've spent in Bali to do a kind of here's what 30 days costs. I'll make that probably tomorrow. Didn't have the mental capacity for it today. I did my podcast, made this podcast, and then thought about this live show. And no beers. Didn't have a beer. I did have a cocktail. Well, had a straight Jack Daniels when I met with Paul and Cheryl. And I sipped it on ice for about an hour, just the taste of it. Enjoyed it, but then woke up the next day and could feel the pains in my wrists of like, oh, it's not worth it. But I succumbed to a drink. So I'm telling you that because I'm not really into the whole bullshitting on that. And I try my best not to drink, but I didn't drink a beer and I didn't drink a cider. It just didn't feel worth it. And I'll tell you what, side tangent, right? Yvonne and I were in the mall today. There's a cinema and a coffee shop. And there was an Asian guy sitting with like two other, maybe looked like, I don't know, looked Thai gentlemen. And Yvonne's like, they're waving at you. And I'm like, what is it? And the Asian guy was like, come here. And I went over to him and he was like, how's it going? And I went, yeah, good, thanks. And he was like, hey, what's your name? And I went, John. And he went, John, I'm Ben. And I went, how you doing, Ben? And he went, do you want a beer? He was drinking a pint of lager. And I went, nah, I don't drink. So, I mean, I'm a bullshitter, right? I had a whiskey with Paul, well, a Jack Daniels on ice. But today at like, what would that been, maybe 4 o'clock or something, 5 o'clock, I didn't want to sit in a cinema drinking a beer with three guys I've never seen before. That just felt a bit weird. So I said, no, I don't drink. And then I walked away. And then Yvonne and I went to a coffee shop and I had a coffee, which is why I'm sweating and was rattling at the beginning of this podcast. Because by that time we'd been to the shops. It's about 6 o'clock and I never drink coffee at that time of night. That's just, but I was kind of thinking that'll keep me awake for the show later, keep my brain active. And instead, just got me rattling. Right. So back to the point, right? Go through the airport yesterday. Now, I've talked about this a couple of times, right? And I'm going to bring it up again. The airport is an IQ test for people. It's where you see fully functioning adults versus NPCs in full effect. There's no getting away from it. The security belt thing, the security desk where you put your bag down, is the ultimate IQ test. It's, can you think 20 to 45 seconds ahead and understand that you need to take a belt off, empty your pockets, put your phone in a tray and a laptop in a tray? It's like 4 things, and it just baffles the fuck out of people. I'm sorry to swear, but that was warranted because I just watched people have mental breakdowns at the machine. There was an Aussie guy there, right? I like Aussies. I like the accent for enough time. Something about the Aussie accent. It depends on the pitch of the person's voice. If it's weighty, carries, but sometimes it can be quite nasally. I mean, I've not got a perfect accent either. I hate listening to the sound of my voice. I mean, it was horrific to be in the gym today listening to my own voice. And Yvonne's talked about this on our Substack, about our own voice. I think we all think that, right? I'm looking at myself right now, and I never enjoy it. I know you might think, Doddle making all these videos, talking on the camera all the time. Not the case. It's always mental gymnastics to make a video. But I watched an Aussie guy and his family get to the machine, right? And the woman is like, belt, wallet, laptop, phone, tray. And he just went to bits. He's just like malfunctioning, right? So he takes the belt off and then he's like, what about the phone? And she's like, the woman's like, yeah, the phone, mate. Puts the phone in and then he's like, they go to scan the thing through, right? And he's got a full bottle of water in the bag. I mean, that's just, I mean, kids know that, right? You can't take the water through. So failed on that. And then he had a laptop in the bag, and I'm watching him, right? Because I'm behind that, and I've got the brain that's like, everything's already in the bag, the laptop's out. You know, I've done all of that maybe about 5 minutes before at the start of the queue. I've done all of that. And then I'm just watching people go to absolute bits over that whole situation. You know, the whole, like, how big can a bottle of cream be? They stand there with like a water bottle in their hand with water in it, and everybody knows you can't take that through. So I think the airport is an IQ test, and I think it's where they actually just track you to see if you are a functioning human. Now, we get through security and we get to the other side, and we're a wee bit ahead of time because, again, we've planned, right? We're not rushing through these things because I like to show up for things ahead of time, to be on time. I've never missed a flight. You know, was never late for meetings. Now, we go to this little coffee stand, right? We get a coffee and a bit of banana bread, which is going to be like breakfast for the two of us. And we're sitting at the coffee bit, and 3 guys come up. 3, I don't know, maybe it looks Indian or something, right? And they're at the counter and they're talking to the member of staff. And one of them just walks away, like walks all the way down the hall. And it's all like rows of seating. And his mate's trying to pay for it, and the card's not going through. And he's like to member of staff, how's it not working? And they're like, don't know. So they kind of wave him to a machine. So he goes away to the machine. He comes back. He hasn't lifted any money. And then then for some reason, it's not even his card. It's his mate's card who's walked off down the hill, down the hall. And he shouts out, "What, what, what's your PIN number? What's your PIN number?" And I'm thinking, there's no way he's going to answer that. No, absolutely. 7219. I wrote it down. 7219. That's that guy's PIN number now. You don't know who he is, but I did. I was thinking, if this was in Glasgow, you would get robbed within about 3 seconds. If you were in anywhere in the UK, you would probably get robbed. Shouting through the entire hall of the airport, 7219. And I'm like, this is either full hard R word in public or massive trust society that you would shout your PIN number out in the middle of an airport hall. It cracks me up. I see when you're now not going home. I enjoy the airport experience now because I get to just relax. I get to just kind of like watch it pass by, right? Because you're like, we'll get there. It's no major issue. Apart from the day where Yvonne and I sat at the wrong gate all the way up until the flight, that was a panic moment. We had to sprint the whole way through the airport, but we did make it. Yvonne was absolutely drenched in sweat and like questioning her fitness levels at that moment, but we made it. But this trip was very casual. It was very calm. And then we got picked up by a taxi outside and brought to Kuala Lumpur, which is about a 40 to 60 minute drive at like 5 o'clock now. And I'm like, this is going to be rush hour traffic. Nope, sailed straight through. 14 quid. 1-4, in case you didn't get my accent there. £14 for that taxi ride. And I'll tell you. Again, like you just see them, like see if you can just, I know, like see if you've got kids and all that might be stressful in the airport. You like try to keep an eye on the kids. If you're a couple, just let settle into the moment, right? But there was a woman getting on the plane who was in a wheelchair and they were trying to let her go through. So they had taken all of our tickets, right? So Yvonne and I, we're going to be sitting in row 3. So they're letting us on first, right? They're letting us on first. Or we're zone 1 on Air Asia. Zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, right? So they call forward zone 1. Yvonne and I are like 3rd or 4th in the queue. They let us go down the ramp, you know, the ramp bit right to the plane. And see when we get about halfway down, they haven't emptied the plane yet. They haven't even opened the doors. So the people getting off the plane are going to have to come up the ramp. So they put like a bit of ribbon across to kind of corral us into the side of the tunnel to the plane to let the people on the plane get off of it. Now, I'm no security expert or steward, but that felt a little bit sloppy by Air Asia. So we're in the wee tunnel thing, right? And then this woman's going to have to get on with a wheelchair. So they're asking everybody, can you get into one side, right? And they're wheeling this woman through on the wheelchair. Looked like she maybe broke a leg or something. And see her partner, husband, boyfriend or whatever. I'm so glad I caught this, right? Because you wouldn't believe me if I said this otherwise, right? He comes walking through the tunnel like this, right? With a coconut, a full coconut. Like, you know, you go to Thailand, you go to Bali, everywhere you go, fresh young coconut, right? Get a nice drink, get a straw and all that. But not to go on a plane. What are you going to do with the coconut for the next 4 hours that you're on the flight to Malaysia? That's like, see people that get on a flight and they bring like a McDonald's or a KFC or something and then they sit there on the flight with like a Burger King or something, eating a burger. Who are these animals? Who? That's what I'm telling you, right? That's an IQ test. Now, you wouldn't believe me if I just told you this story, right? You'd be like, shut up, John. Nobody had a coconut. There's the guy with the coconut. That's the front of the plane. Look at how he's holding that coat. Who even holds a coconut like that? right? To now that this is a podcast, there won't be video attached to this when it goes on Spotify, but let me describe it. It's a guy with a backpack. He's got a neck pillow and he's got a coconut just in his hand with a straw in it. I mean, what are the staff going to do with that when you go, that's not that a bit, you know, when they come around with the bag and they're like, any rubbish, you go to drop a coconut in that? The staff would be like, you're barred. So that was it. Like, I write these things down because I just think that's funny, right? I'm going to tell people on the vlog about that because that's random. That's random. Right. Story number 2 of the week. Let me tell you about what's happening with the insurance. I'll keep this short and tight. The insurance company have agreed the name of the company, right? Because in the last episode, I was telling you they were trying to change the name from what was in the terms and conditions to a different name. And I called it out in an email and said, no, your terms and conditions say this name. And then they agreed. And then what they tried to do was, well, I can't prove this, but they misspelled that name in a particular way to almost kind of mischaracterize it. Kind of looked like that. Now, probably just a spelling mistake. The woman who is the person who's doing it is like head of their legal team. She does often make a lot of grammar and spelling mistakes in the communications, so it could well be that. But they misspelled their name, and then I called that out, and they agreed, oh, sorry, wrong spelling. And then when the documentation came out from the arbitration company, they had spelt it as the misspelt name. And I said, nope, can we correct this? And that was getting done at the tail end of last week. Now, Monday, the 4th of May was the deadline for all of this to be done, paid, them to pay the bill, right? I had to pay to bring the case to arbitration. And then they had to pay their side as a company representing themselves, and they hadn't paid. And they were given Monday, the 4th of May to pay before we go into this arbitration process. And last week, Monday, the 4th of May, they hadn't paid. And at the end of the week, they hadn't paid. And on Monday, they still hadn't paid. And then very early on Tuesday morning, I got an email saying, right, that's it, now paid. They've sent the money and it's been received. And I've also just had documentation to say that the arbitration company has now accepted the case and will now move forward to the next steps, which would be confirming all of the documentation from both sides and then going into the arbitrator selection process. What I mean by that is head company is the arbitration business, but there'll probably be a list of maybe 10 people who will be the arbitrator, and we'll both be able to make selections like jury duty, like picking which person you want, and we'll get their profiles and we'll both have to pick all of that. And then it will move forward to paperwork now. Just a reminder, it was last October I fell ill. It was at the end of October I ended up with sepsis. And then since then, I've been in this legal battle with them. And now it's May. And I had a little check to see how long this might take. And I've had answers of somewhere between maybe 4 to 6 to 8, possibly as far as 12 months to go through all of this. So isn't that nice? Isn't that awesome? That's so good. So I thought I would just share with you, I'm at least at the stage now. Arbitrator has accepted the case. The insurance company has now agreed the name, has paid the bill, and is ready to commence the dueling over the terms and conditions within their own policy that I have purchased. And I'm still paying the monthly bill. However, this will probably be the last month that I'll do that. And I'll make a decision as to whether I either have no insurance and put money aside, or whether I take insurance with somebody else. I'm very much still on the fence on this decision so far. Now, we've moved back here, right? And we've tried to downsize a little bit, tried to downsize some items. And Yvonne and I are struggling because I bought the shirt, I bought some shorts. Yvonne bought 2 dresses, I think. And we were panicking because we're like, well, we've only got 20 kilograms on the suitcase. And when we came out, it was exactly, that's like, that's one of those wee dopamine hits, right? When you put the bag on the scale, and it is exactly 20 kilograms. And on the way back, it was 20.1. But Yvonne and I are still looking at clothes that we've got. We've ended up with like 2 wardrobes now. We've got the Malaysia wardrobe and we've got the Bali, Thailand wardrobe, and they're different. So we're going to try and downsize again. But every time we try and do that, we reach the same conclusion, which is we leave it until the day that we're going to leave. And then we go, let's just deal with it when we get to the next location. Because we are both terrible at this. This is like life's problems now. Do you lose that shirt? I've got like 2 shirts that I haven't worn yet. And I keep putting them on. And I go with that to Yvonne, what do you think? And she's like, yeah, that looks good on. And then I never wear it. And I should just get rid of it, but I can't. I can't bring myself to get rid of it. It's just a weird thing. Letting go of things is very difficult. Don't know how we ever got through the whole getting rid of all of our stuff last year, but we did. Coconut Man still living in my brain, still cracks me up. Just bizarre. And like, we talk about that kind of IQ test, right? I would hope that as my audience here, my listeners, right, that you guys are listeners to this that wouldn't enact what I'm about to tell you. Who are these people that get up to try and leave the plane before the plane has even really hit the tarmac? When the staff are sitting at the front, they're facing you. They've done the whole, they've checked everybody for seat belts. They've made sure your trays are in the upright position. They've made sure your window blind is up, right? Your seat's back up in the right position. You're sitting there and you're about to land. And there's always one guy. It's nearly always a guy that just gets up and starts heading to the front. Like, that's me. We're here. We're done. And there was a guy that did that on the flight. And the 2 members of staff, the hostess was like, sir, sit down, sir, get back in your seat. Like it was like onto the tarmac. This guy was up like straight to the front. I think he needed the toilet, right? But tough. You've clearly not thought through the next 30 minutes of a descent, and you deserve everything you get at that point, right? You're going to have to just ride it out or pee your pants, one of the two of them. It's not going to be pretty, but those are the choices that you've made at not thinking ahead at that moment. Now, I'll tell you what was fun. I was saying at the beginning of this, right, about thinking about starting hobbies and those kind of things. I made 2 videos this week. One, a kind of day in the life, little bit of fun, where it was like Yvonne and I going for coffee and doing all of that stuff. And then I also did a numbers video, but I made the 2 of them on the same day. And that was like quite interesting to kind of tackle a project where I joked with Yvonne. I was like, I feel like Christopher Nolan. It's like Inception. It's like a story within a story within a story, because I was living the day, then videoing the day, then making another video, and while making the other video, videoing me make that video. And then at the end of the day, editing that video, but then also editing the other video, because the next day we were going to be leaving we were going to be leaving the country and I wouldn't have time to do it. So the day was like 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. But in reality, I was awake till about 2 o'clock in the morning, because I was like, got to get this project done. Got to edit this, right? I could have done it in the airport, but I'm not like that. I can't go to sleep when there's like open-ended tasks. So I'm like, must get this project done. So I was awake till about 2 o'clock in the morning. But it was fun to plan all of that. And like, I don't write notes or anything down. I just do that in my head. And I was kind of thinking through the sequence, right? I'll shoot this and I'll do that. And at one stage, I was kind of making the video, editing a video, and Yvonne was videoing me doing all of that. And that's where it was like Inception. I mean, I'm over dramatizing that, of course, for bants, but it was fun to kind of pull all that together and make that video. But in the video, I also mentioned that we'd gone to the gym. And I'll tell you, here's like a little kind of mental test. Right, I did a cold plunge in the gym. I've never done a cold plunge in my life. I've heard like Joe Rogan and all that talk about it. Do a cold plunge. I've seen like football players jumping in wheelie bins filled with ice and all that, right? And I'm always like, how hard can this be? We went into the gym and they had a cold and a hot plunge. The hot plunge was like 38 degrees and the cold plunge was 8 degrees. Check the wee dial-y thing, temperature gauge. And we only did gym membership for 2 weeks. We bought a week and then a second week. It was £17 each for the week. 4 floors of the gym and a great restaurant, great food. And I said to Yvonne, like at the very beginning of week 1, let's do the cold plunge. And I got in it and I think I lasted about 10 seconds. No word of a lie. I think I stayed in it for about 10 seconds. And I got out as if I'd been in it for like an hour. I was absolutely frozen getting the hot plunge. And I was like, right, I'm not doing that again. And see afterwards, for the rest of week 1, I couldn't get in it. I couldn't mentally get in it. I was like, that was horrific. 10 seconds. Yvonne hopped in it about 10 seconds. We both laughed. We went in the sauna afterwards. Sauna was like the place to be, by the way. We met some really cool people in the sauna, just people coming in. Hey, how you doing? Nearly all Aussies. Hey, how you doing? Adam, Chris, Mark, a couple other people. So this guy comes in, I think his name was Adam. And he's like, oh, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Oh, where's your accent from? Scotland. What about you? Australia. Do you live here? Chat comes out. Try to have a chat in a sauna, right? Like, you can hardly breathe, right? You breathe in and it's like burning your lungs, the temperature in there. Not a place to sit down and have a, hey, how's it going? Tell me about your life. But Adam was like, oh, I was just in the cold plunge. And this guy's like maybe in his 50s or something, right? And he's saying to me, I was just in the cold plunge there. And I was like, oh, how'd you get on? And he was like, just did 4 minutes. And I was like, what? 4 minutes? How'd you manage 4 minutes? He's like, oh, I've been doing it for a while now. Mind over matter. You just get in, you sit still and just don't move. When you move, you feel the cold, but it's just mind over matter. And I'm like, 4 minutes? Oh, shit. No way. So second week, we sign up. We weren't sure if we were going to stay in Sanur, so we just did a week's pass. Decide we're going to stay in Sanur. We sign up for a second week. Yvonne was over the moon with that decision, I can tell you. She like looked at me like, are you for real? Another week? But we signed up. And then towards the end of the week, when we made that video, that was the last day we could go in. And days before, I had done 3 minutes. And I was like, I've got this. I've got I know where it's at now. Was just get in and hold a position and just sit there. And you don't really feel anything after it. It just goes like, it's like you're in the Zen mode. And I was like, I'm going to beat his 4 minutes. I'm going to do that. And I did 4 minutes and 30 seconds. And I was feeling it at that point. I could feel my shins and my toes and all that going. And I got out and then got in the hot tub. And the hot tub then felt like, Yvonne's famous for running. Like we've been to like Cancun years ago when you get a hot tub. Yvonne runs a hot tub like a scalding bath. She's given me like 3rd-degree burns in the past with like, oh, let's have a romantic hot tub between us. Here's some bubble bath. And then you get in it and you're like, Jesus Christ. 3 layers of skin comes off your legs because she's run it just hot. It was like that in the hot plunge. But having never done that before, gone from 10 seconds to 4.5 minutes, I felt well chuffed with myself. I came out of that and Yvonne was like, look at how happy you are. And I'm like, yeah, because it's like a mind over matter thing. It's one of those, like, again, like I said at the beginning of this, see if you're thinking about starting a hobby, you want to do something and you're like, oh, what will my pals say? Or what will my family say? Or what if people take the piss out of me? Just do it, right? Just go and start it. And that cold plunge was like mind over matter. I was like, see, when I got on that plane tomorrow, my bones, my body's going to feel decent out of this. 4 minutes 30. The next time we go back to Bali, I'm going to be in that thing like a bath. Just going to sit in it for days just to smash that record. See the guy, Adam, right, when he told me 4 minutes? Because I was so freaked out by that, 4 minutes, I was in it for like 10 seconds. I had to make a joke that was the same temperature as summer in Scotland. That's the only way that I could equate it back. He went, oh, it's like It's like 8 degrees. And I went, we call that summer in Glasgow, mate. And he laughed and I laughed, and then that was it. Right. That's those. So 2 stories covered already. And then Bali. Let me finish on this, right? Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Great place. Yvonne still says Thailand, Bali, Malaysia. I would say Bali, Thailand, Malaysia in that order. Sometimes Malaysia and Thailand rotate around for me depending on what's happening, but I loved it. I've run the numbers. Wasn't as bad as I thought. I thought we'd blown the budget completely out the water, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. And I would like to stay longer next time, do the 2 months, because you can extend your visa. And on the last day, right, we're sitting at a little coffee shop having a cappuccino, and this older gentleman's passing by with a Scotland t-shirt on, and Yvonne just took a moment and said, "Love your t-shirt." He came and sat down with us because he was so flattered by Yvonne giving him this random compliment in the middle of Bali. And his name was John. He's 72 and he's just recovering from liver cancer. And he's got to go in for an operation to get half of it removed, I think. He's had some kind of treatment where they've injected him with some kind of nuclear stuff, like some kind of balls. I think he got it done in Australia. Some crazy experimental cancer treatment. They've injected him with this nuclear stuff and the cancer is gone, but he's got issues with his liver and he's going to get half of his liver removed in Australia, and his ex-wife is going to look after him, and he lives between Australia and Bali, most of his time in Bali, but he's from Nitz Hill in Glasgow, Scotland, and we sat chatting, and he was just a wealth of cool chat, and all of that only came round because Yvonne said, "Love your t-shirt," and then he was like, "Oh, how are you doing?" And so out of all of that, right, he's telling me he's living in Bali, he's just had cancer, so the whole raft of life issues going on, and he was telling me that him and his son, now I hope he's all right with this, I did clear it with him, he's lost a son, he's got 2 sons, he lost a son some years ago, and he's got another son that was his teacher, and that son's gone on to be a Bitcoin crypto specialist, give speeches on it. Him and his son are going to New York, going to Boston to see Scotland play in the World Cup. They're going to all 3 games, and if Scotland, for some miraculous reason, make it to the next round, which they've never done, he will stay on, and then he's going to get half of his liver removed and hopefully make a recovery from the cancer treatment. And all of that 90 minutes to 2 hours, I was like, "Oh, we've exchanged." He's on my WhatsApp, sending Yvonne and I messages. "Love speaking to you." I said to him, "Would you fancy doing an interview on my channel?" And he was like, "Yep, next time you're back here, let's do it." We were on the last couple of hours of our day. I'm going to go back. He was like, "Oh, my name's Scottish John." But I think he's been living in Bali on and off for like 20 plus years. Knew everybody there. Super nice guy. That all came because Yvonne said, "Love your t-shirt." So sometimes you've just got to put yourself out there and say to somebody passing by, "Love your t-shirt," little compliment, and you never know where it's going to go. Right. And on that note, it's just over an hour. And this will be episode 11 of the very first actual knowing that I've got a podcast episode called Second Wind, and it will be on Spotify tomorrow. Thanks everybody for coming and listening to all of this. I appreciate everybody coming and hanging out. And I will see you next Wednesday for the live. And if you want to go over to Spotify, link is in the description, and be one of my first ever followers on Spotify. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll catch you next week.